Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. So, as for those of you who don't know, just a quick introduction to Guiding Teens. We are a nonprofit initiative started by Sapna and me. We're both school counselors who've been doing this for a while, and what we have realized is that one is not all schools have counselors. Even in schools where there are counselors, the parent often does get a little left out of these things. And so this is our effort to really enable parents to help their teens make more informed choices for their future. Today, we're really thrilled to have with us some of our former students who are studying at different universities in the US. This particular edition is the US edition. We are planning for a few other countries, including India later in the year, in a couple of months. So I want to thank our lovely students, Raghav, Agrim, Pratham, and Shreya. And so we'll start by asking them to introduce themselves. On my screen, it's Raghav first, and then Agrim, and then Pratham, and then Shreya. So we'll go in that order. So over to you, Raghav. Just a quick introduction. Basically, we can see your name, but yeah, sure. Name, which university you're studying at, which year, what major. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Raghav Ranawat. I go to UC Berkeley. I'm a rising senior, which means I'm a fourth year student, or I'll be starting my fourth year this fall. I am studying political science. I'm also declared for environmental science. So, those are my two academic majors.
Hi everyone, I am Agrim and I go to Harvard International Business School in Boston. I'm also a rising senior like Raghav, so I'll be my fourth year now. I'm doing a double major in marketing and entrepreneurship.
Hi, my name is Pratham and I study at UIUC, so that's University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I'm a double major in aerospace engineering and material sciences, and I'm going to be starting my junior year this August.
Hi, I'm Shreya. I'm currently studying StatML at Carnegie Mellon University, and I'm a rising junior.
Okay, thank you so much. I think so. Let me start with the first question. How did you end up at the universities you ended up with, right? So, I guess the question is, all kids apply to a number of different universities, and some of you may have ended up at your top choice, some not. So can you just give us a sense of, what made you select this university, or really like, what made you choose this university as the one to enroll in? And if so, what were the factors that went into that? So again, we'll
Yeah.
start in that same
I,
order, right?
Yeah, I think I'll go ahead with that. And to give you some background, I did not actually start at Berkeley. I went to a university in DC for the first 2 years. It is called American University. And my coming to the US was a very last minute thing. It was not planned. Ma'am Sapna and I had talked about staying in India, pursuing law in the country. But of course, there were circumstances which changed, and I was supposed to end up in Australia studying, doing the 5-year BA LLB. Yet again, I mean, I think I was very undecided as to what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to pursue law in the long term, but in the short term, my priorities were changing. So, as a last ditch effort, excuse me, I applied to American U. I was in DC for the first 2 years. I always had it at the back of my mind that I might want to transfer, mainly because I was not getting the academic rigor that I wanted. Also, it wasn't as competitive as I wanted it to be, mainly because, well, academics were easy there. So I was looking out for schools to transfer to. After my first year, I applied to a few schools. I got into NYU and UNC, Chapel Hill. But I didn't think it was a good enough motive to transfer. So I applied that after my second year. And then I got into Berkeley, so I chose to come here. They have a very strong political science program. I think it's among the best three in the country. And also environmental science. I was taking classes for general sciences at AU. But thereafter, I was doing well in them, and my interest developed over the months of taking environmental science classes. So I decided to do also an environmental science major along with poli sci. For my long-term goal, I want to pursue law. So I'm studying for the LSAT, which is an entrance exam sort of for law school. Yeah.
Thank you. Arjun?
So I actually had a very interesting journey of ending up at Hull. I was basically trying to pursue international relations. And so I was looking into universities like Sciences Po that are based out of France, and there's another one called Leiden in Netherlands. So I was not really focused on US relations and not even interested in business at that duration. So what happened was Sapna ma'am had asked me to create sort of a brag sheet so she could start compiling my letter of recommendations and whatever was required on her end. And so when I went there, we were discussing a brag sheet. She told me that your CV looks more like a business CV. Are you interested in exploring business colleges? And I was like, yeah, it looks like a good fit, but I don't know of any business colleges. But if you recommend me some, I would definitely love to apply. And coincidentally, I got a text from her the next day, and then she called me saying that there's this college called Hult, and they're asking me to recommend one student for a full scholarship there. But I want to recommend two names, and I've already chosen one. Should I recommend you as the second name? And I mean, for me, it was a no-brainer. I didn't have to do anything. Like she was submitting everything for me. So I was like, yeah, sure, you go ahead with it. Then I think after 2 months or so, I got a message on WhatsApp from somebody at Hult. And during this duration, if somebody asked me if you applied to Hult, I didn't know I'd applied because the name was not on the top of my mind. Um, so what happened was they asked me to send some sort of a college essay to them. Uh, so I just wrote it down really quickly, sent it to them because the deadline was really short. And then I got an interview. So once I got the interview call, then I got serious about, okay, there's a college called Hult. And then I started researching more about it. And in the duration, I kind of decided that I want to do business and not pursue international relations as a career. And so I ended up there. So very like I don't know, like a journey, very coincidence.
Very cool. And I'm sure that was a motivation, like strong enough motivation, right? The scholarship. Pratham?
Yeah, so for me, my story was a bit like completely different to the previous two you might have heard. Because for me, it was pretty much I knew what I wanted to do, like, and I was in contact with Ramya for the better part of like 11th grade, and then basically up until the end. And yeah, basically, she gave me a checklist. I just did the stuff on it, and yeah, that's basically how I ended up in the US. And the reason I chose the US for the main part was because most of the research programs I was interested in, so like a lot of the turbo machinery stuff, and basically most of the big funding NASA projects only happen in the US, and not other countries offer that kind of fund. So yeah, that was basically the main reason.
And can I just ask, why did you add on material science? I mean, it seems related, but any particular reason to add on a second,
Right.
also intense major?
Yeah, so well, the first reason is because I just looked at my course schedule and I'm like, I'm doing 80% of material science anyway. I might as well get the 20% done. And the other reason is also like for the stuff I want to do, so propulsion systems, one of the main issues is what materials do we use so it doesn't like literally melt off and fall off, right? So I'm like, it would be better if I knew this stuff. So like, might as well do it.
Okay. Shreya?
Yeah, hi. So my journey was pretty much more or less similar to Pratham's as well. And I actually started out thinking I study economics, and I was looking at a lot of programs in UMich, USC, and colleges like that. But then I came across CMU stats major, and I just wanted to combine my econ with something data heavy. So then I just thought maybe let's try econ and stats. So then I realized that stats has a strong technical foundation, and it also felt really relevant to the kind of work that I wanted to do, basically, which is combining data with real world impact. So with that, like CMU wasn't really my plan from the start, but once I came across that degree, that program, it felt like the right direction for me. So I just went ahead with that.
Okay, thank you. Sapna, do you want to take over?
Yeah. So great. So I think we've already covered some of, how did you reach a particular major. So I'm going to pivot from the question that I initially thought of, and I'm going to kind of ask you to explain to us, because there are many kids here or other people who don't really understand how different studying at different colleges could look like, right? So if we could start, and because Agrim is on my first thing on my desktop, we'll start with Agrim. Agrim, what does exactly studying your particular major look like at HALT? What does it mean in terms of the academics? One, how stressful is it? Do you have any general education requirements? If yes, what do they look like? How often do you get tested? Stuff like that. Like, how would you describe your academic experience?
Sure. So I think this was the point I was office today, and we were kind of discussing this.
Yeah.
That Halt is very unique in its essence. So when I initially had gone, I was not really liking Halt as a university, but eventually now I like it more because they have a lot of flexibility and they're very practical in terms of how the curriculum is established. So, I mean, even at Harvard's or MITs of the world, you would see a sort of examination happening maybe every semester or twice every semester. Halt is not like that. It's very practical in its nature, and how that happens is so it's a 7 week course, and within those 7 weeks, you're divided in teams of 6 people, and the rule is 6 people cannot be from the same country. So it's a very diverse sort of experience. Within my batch itself, there are people from over 110 something nationalities. So the rule is 6 people cannot be from the same country. So you're literally in a team with 5 other people from 5 different countries, and they give you some sort of a prompt that you have to work on, and you actually have to create a startup. So, for example, a prompt that we got, I think in my second year, was that you have to create an app in the healthcare industry, and within those 7 weeks, we actually had to create the app. Now, what happens is the marketing professor tells you how you would market the app and how do you get users. The computer science professor would kind of explain you how you actually code the app or kind of come up with an MVP. Then there would be an economics professor that would maybe tell you how the economics of the app would look like, or maybe the finance of the app would look like. So all of these people, they kind of tell you different segments about what you are building and kind of help you build the startup. And the good part is we don't have exams. So instead of that, we have regular assignments. But for our end project, what we basically do is we prepare sort of a pitch deck, and we assume our professors are our investors, and we pitch the idea to them along with the MVP and I mean the initial work that we've done, and we are graded on the basis of that. So this was what we've been doing for 3 years, and I've been liking it so far now. Um, However, they have recently, like, I haven't explored the new curriculum, but they have completely shifted the curriculum very recently. So when I go back in September, this will be my first time exploring how the new curriculum looks like. But this time they have kind of gone into the route where it's similar to other colleges. Like there's a semester system instead of the 7 week system, and you kind of do different classes. Although it's still very practical, but they have introduced new courses like AI, metaverse, all of that. But yeah, a very unique experience, I must say.
Raghav,
Yes.
the
So
academic stress like, and what is the experience like?
yes. So, I think as opposed to what Agrim said, Berkeley follows a more conventional path of education. And I think it would be especially beneficial for students from India because I think from anecdotal evidence, and take it as that, most of my classes, I think 80% of my grade has been examination, either midterm, quarter semester, or final examinations. So that is one thing that you should keep in mind. And 20%, of course, is participation, other assignments in class. Perhaps some classes have projects, but that's about it. Academics at Berkeley, I mean, I think Berkeley is famous for its rigorous academics. That's the one thing that really drew me to it. You have to really fight for your place here. Remember, this is a public university in the US and it caters specifically to California. So we have about 40,000 undergrad students, and about 80% of them are from California itself, and about 85% of our student body is from the US. So we do have some diversity when it comes to students, but again, it is quite a competitive university. So to say, the academics are competitive. And I would, for example, in the smallest class that I had last semester, for example, was about 100 students, and the largest class that I had was about 400 students. However, having said that, we also have the system of GSIs, I mean, they're called graduate student instructors. They are PhD students who individually teach sections of classes. So let's say if I have a political science class of 400 students, that 400 student class would be divided into 10 sections, and a graduate student instructor who is a PhD student working with that professor would then teach an individual section every week for about an hour and a half or two, going over what we discussed in class, so on and so forth. So it's almost like you have a big session and then a little session with 1/10 of the class. That is the academic layout for academics at Berkeley. It's definitely been more stressful than my previous university. And of course, I didn't understand how much I'd have to study once I came here. Only when I started studying and looking at people around me did I realize the academic competitiveness that there is. And just a quick fact, we have 33 libraries on campus, and during finals time, there is not a single library which has a single seat open. I mean, people are really dedicated here. Also, we have like great deflation, which in practical terms means that not everybody gets A's or B's. So I think you really have to work for your grade here, but at the end of it, it is reporting. Yeah.
Pratham, what about you?
Yeah, so as Raghav said, even I go to a public university and the system's pretty much the same. It's just that for because I'm in engineering, I also have the added advantage of going to a lab, which is not fun. And so usually you get paired up with some random person. So you if you have a friend, that's well and good. But usually your schedules don't end up matching. So the professor just allots you somebody and you go there and there's a not like just as Raghav said, there's a graduate student, he has an assistant and he helps you through it. That's you have that twice a week, and so that's 4 hours a week. And then for the exams and grading part, for us, there's severe, like the professor makes sure to curve down in some of these courses, in engineering at least. So one of my courses, 20% of the class had to fail, like you cannot pass. And that was one rough semester. And then not only that, but a lot of these exams you have two a week or like three a week every week. And during finals is usually honestly it's more peaceful than surviving most of the semester because at this point you've already been like fine-tuned to most of this like stuff you they give you throughout the semester and you already know what's mostly coming in the exams. And but the only thing I would advise if you want to come into engineering is find somebody who's already done your courses. Like he or she will end up giving you all the stuff you need to like get a A or a B. And also another thing, go and butter up your discussion professors because they usually have a 2% extra credit margin which they don't tell you about, but you can always just ask them for it and they will give it to you.
Great. Good tips. Shreya, what about you?
Yeah, so my college experience, like in terms of academics, is pretty much similar to Raghav's and Pratham's as well. So exams at CMU really depend on the class. So some courses have traditional midterms and finals, while others have like these project based. Like most of my stats classes have a final along with a project where you have to code up like some statistical modeling analysis or something of that sort. And I'd say academics overall are very fast paced, but you're also pretty much tested on how well you understand and apply these concepts. So for that, we have a lot of weekly assignments, a lot of quizzes in between. So it's always just continuous. And we have like two midterms before the actual final. So we have roughly 3 exams per course, and normally we're expected to take 5 courses. And we have general education quotas as well. So we have to take a specific history class. We have to take some science class. So I'm taking human anatomy next next semester, which is not related to my major at all, but it's something that is fun. So I just started taking that. And yeah, so I would just say that mainly the academic environment is pretty rigorous, but it's also very collaborative, and you always have people that help you out. So, like Raghav also said, we have a big session, and then we have recitations, which are led by teacher assistants. So they can or cannot be PhD students for us. So, like most of us, like I was a TA for one of my class like last year. So, like most undergrads can also just take up TA positions, but So yeah, that's basically how my academic is also structured.
So I know some of you have mentioned about this, but I just want to know how many of you are on the quarter system, like, or the semester system? Like, how does it go for you? Shreya, for you, quarter system or semester system?
We have semester.
Your semesters. Pratham,
Yeah, even I work on a semester system.
Raghav.
Yes, so I'm at the UC system, which is the University of California system. We have 9 UCs for undergrads. Out of the 9 UCs, 7 UCs follow the quarter system, which is they have 4 academic terms. And UC Berkeley and UC Davis, the northernmost UCs, have a semester system. I do not know why exactly, but that's the outlay. So I think for Indian students, it would be easier to adapt to the semester system as opposed to the quarter system. Yeah.
And then Nagrim, of course, has a unique 7 week system.
That's also basically a quarter
Quarter
system,
system, it's, yeah,
but
exactly.
they've now shifted to a semester system. That's what.
Right. Okay. Okay. Now, so all of you've spoken about your academics, and so what kind of support is available in case somebody is struggling with the academics? What are the resources they can turn towards in your college?
You want me to start?
Yeah, okay, Agram. Yes.
So I mean, because again, in the essence of how the program is structured, people don't really end up struggling too much when it comes to academics.
But for
So
you,
I
it would
mean,
be like project-based stuff they could struggle
yeah,
with, right? Yeah.
yeah. And as I mentioned, like the specific professor is teaching you like a specific thing about the business. So generally, like if something like this is happening, um, I mean, typically you can simply go to the professor, ask for like office hours, and they would help you out. But I mean, I don't see a lot of people really struggling with academics, so very rare sight for me.
Okay. Raghav?
Yes, so I think because Berkeley is as competitive as it is, thankfully we have a very robust system of support which is provided to students. So there's of course the academic part of it where we have students who help one another with teaching, and many students who end up helping or peer tutoring their peers are compensated for their tutoring, and this is I think one on-campus job which international students can also take. But again, we have our GSIs or PhD students who teach our classes, who also take part in this sort of remedial system of helping students and teaching them. But along with that, what I really love about Berkeley is that they also have mental health support for students. And every student in a given semester has 5 free sessions of mental health with the university for free. And I did take help from them in my first semester because obviously it was very overwhelming, but I didn't think I needed academic support as much as I needed mental health support, and they're extremely good with that. So we have academic support, mental health support. You can always reach out to your GSIs or TAs as they're known for extra academic support. And of course, because they're being paid for it, I would like to think that they would put the best foot forward because they would want to be paid again. Yeah.
Yeah. Pratham?
Yeah, so for us, we have this system called CARE. I'm sorry, I forget its full name,
It's okay.
but it's only up till like I guess you can say freshman year courses because I think they have it till Calc 3 and Linalg and like a few basics physics and chemistry courses. But after that, once you actually enter your departmental courses, so like for me, I'm aerospace, right? So when I start my AE level courses, you have I think 3 hour office hours a day per professor. So like if it's a 3 credit hour course, you'll probably have 2 to 3 hours a week of office hours. And they're usually pretty empty. Nobody usually goes to office hours unless it's like 3 weeks before your final. But yeah, until then they're pretty helpful. But a lot of the times they just send you the PPT slides and ask you to study from them, which doesn't really help. But it's something, right? And then, but usually by the time you come to this point, like you'll kind of realize that most of your logic and understandings will come from just like pure like brute force practice. So like you just find a source of like a question bank and just get solving, and you should be fine. But and as Raghav mentioned, we do have a like 3 free mental health appointments, I think. But like you like I think one of my friends tried registering for it and there was a 3 month wait. So like by the time you get it, the semester is practically over. So like, if you do want it, please make sure to book it in advance. That's it.
Raghav, was that your experience too,
Oh,
or
no,
was it
not at all. You can register for the same day or a next day appointment for mental health. They take it very seriously here because it's unfortunate because we've had a few incidences in the past, which the university thankfully is taken very seriously. But we have the same day or the next day appointment. I have never had an issue booking an appointment, either for mental or physical well-being. So thankfully they're good at that. Yeah.
Shreya?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much similar as well. So there's a lot of support in terms of academics for sure. So there's office hours and there are TAs or peer tutors as well who run extra sessions or who are also available to answer other questions. And then we also have this one office called CAPS. I think it's something around counseling and psychological services. So that's basically for people who are struggling more than just academics. So in terms of mental health issues, so which this offers like therapy and group sessions and even short-term mental health check-ins. And a lot of our clubs actually organize wellness events. So like support comes for us in terms of official and unofficial sources in our community.
Right. Ramya, you want to go over the student life?
Yes. So I think thank you for sharing the academic, part of things. And thank you for being open and honest about it too, because, I think many kids do underestimate what a jump, just like, I think back when you guys were in 11th grade, you probably felt, oh my God, it's such a jump from 10th grade. Going to university is no doubt, big academic jump up. So, in terms of student life, just broadly, can you tell us a little bit about social life at your college? What do you guys do? Specifically, what are you guys involved with for clubs? Is entry into the clubs competitive? Because in some universities, it tends to be that getting into a club is as competitive as getting into the university. Is there a lot of like party culture, or just generally whatever you feel like sharing? Really? Sorry, we'll start with Raghav.
I think this is my favorite question thus far. I mean, I love talking about partying because I think what university student does not. But I think overall, we do have a very robust social life at university. And Berkeley is outside of San Francisco. It's a 30-minute train ride. So students don't end up going to San Francisco, they end up staying in the city itself. We have, again, 40,000 students. So we have a very strong Greek life, as they call it here, which basically is fraternities and sororities. So every weekend, or I think on any given day, there's some or the other party happening at some or the other sorority or fraternity. So there's a lot of recreational things happening there. So there's a lot of partying happening, at least in terms of that. But more on social life, I think we have about 1,000 clubs, and this is not hyperbole. So we have about 1,000 clubs. There's some club for some minority in some niche, and you'll find any which possible club that you want to. We have the wildest imaginable clubs at school. So I think there's always something for someone here. Um, but on the other side of the spectrum, there are some, of course, given that there are so many clubs, we also have some elite clubs, as they call it. And entering to them is extremely competitive. When I say extremely competitive, I mean like acceptance rate is less than 1%. So it really is less than the acceptance rate of the university itself. For example, I was applying to the Model UN Club last semester. They had 600 applications and they only took 12 students. So it's quite crazy when you think about it, especially because our team is really good, and it's a big school. I think there's also growth of resources, but that's a part of the issue. But again, you have your own clubs, and of course, you can found your own club as well if you have a certain amount of students. So there's always that. As a matter of fact, I'm finding a club this semester. It's called the Philarity Club. I spoke to Ma'am Sapna a little bit about it. It's basically stamp collecting. I was having a hard time finding people who collect stamps on campus, and I was able to influence a few people to write their names down. But now we have a stamp club at Berkeley. So there's always the opportunity to start or found your own club as well. Yeah.
Agdam?
So what Raghav said sounds like a dream to me because clubs and all they exist in my college, but unfortunately, college doesn't have a lot of budget for the clubs. So to put it in perspective, there are I mean, my college is really small. So the entire undergraduate population spans between 800 to 1,000 students, unlike any public university. And in my batch itself, there are about 200 odd people. So in terms of clubs, you would see clubs based on countries. So you would see an Indian club, you would see a Brazil club. And at the same time, you would see for specific things like there is a Model UN club, but we don't end up going to even a single Model UN the entire year. Uh, Joining clubs is relatively easy. You just get on their WhatsApp groups. But the problem is half of the clubs, or if not less, um, if not more, sorry, they don't end up doing anything the entire year. There is just a club fair year round where they'll put a stall, and I think that's most of it. So in terms of clubs, we are not very active, and we actually lack a lot of motivation doing anything for clubs because it doesn't turn out to be like a popular thing to be in a club. Except of that, in terms of partying again, because it's a small college, um, I think we are one of the few colleges that have a bar within the college. So there are some events that are happening every day in the bar. So there's some sort of social life, but generally you would see master students going there. So you'll see a less undergrad population. Most of the people, so Hult, one another thing here is that you'd see some sort of a niche crowd that is coming from a very privileged class. So you would see them going to clubs very often, spending like thousands of dollars a night, which is, I mean, unlike somebody from Mayo uh, would. But I mean, yeah, that's sort of the social life here.
Before we move to Pratham, though, I will say a little plug. Abram is, an entrepreneur. He has his own business, something related to this space. So at the end, if we have time, we will ask him to give a little elevator pitch of his company. So I guess not having much of a social life has worked out well in
Oh,
that front.
he has a great social entrepreneur circle going for him. He's attending all kinds of functions.
Exactly. So we'll definitely put in a pitch at the end for that. Pratham?
Yeah, so I'll go into a bit more detail because my university makes clubs like they make it sound like it's the holy grail. But like on the third day of your freshman week, there's this specified 2-day event called Quad Day. So on the main quad, there's like every club has a stall, and they're basically trying to convince you to join. And you go walking around, and there's basically three, no, four zones. So one is they count fraternities and sororities, so Greek life as part of clubs. So that's Greek clubs. Then you have technical clubs. So like for example, if I'm engineering, I would have the FSAE team or the rocketry team or something like that. And then you have the cultural clubs. So like based on your ethnicity or like where you're from and stuff like that. And then you have like your hobbies, right? I remember I got invited for the sword play club. It was pretty fun for some time, and then you get bored. So that's that. And then for I don't know much about the other clubs, but I've only joined the technical club so far, or like consistently put in work for them. It's pretty easy to get in, but I guess what's the hard part is they won't give you any work, and to like get the higher positions where you have any hold on what they do, you kind of need the work to like show that I've done this and then I deserve more, right? So I got lucked out because I happen to know one person who was basically like the project lead, and I butted him up to like give me three promotions or something. Um, but like for most people, it's like constant begging. So like for the first a month and a half, you're just begging them to like give me work, and it's crazy because it's basically unpaid work, right? And they don't want to give you work, and yeah, so you just keep on asking them, and sometimes you get the work, and then if the project isn't killed by the time it gets put on to the main thing, you've lucked out, and that's usually how it goes. But there are some smaller clubs, like one of the smaller clubs I joined is called Liquid Rocketry Initiative. It's 8 people, and we basically built a liquid rocket engine, like a fully functional one, and we presented it to NASA and DARPA and stuff. And the good thing is it's like a well-known fact that like 70% and above of my university's budget goes into engineering. So they have a lot of money to spend when it comes to engineering for some reason. We get sponsors from everywhere. I think there's another day just for that. So like a lot of clubs just put up stalls, and people from like Ford, John Deere, and everyone's just there in like suits and stuff, and you're just trying to impress them to like put their sponsor name, and you're trying to get the money from them. And they're pretty generous with it too. They just give you money. That's that. And then for partying, well, Champagne is, as I know, the only place in the US where it's 19 to drink and enter clubs. So everyone's in a club when it's like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But when it comes to like, I would say like you have a month and a half of time to party before it gets pretty cold. And then once it gets pretty cold, no one really goes out. Or like if they go out, it's usually someone's birthday or something like that. But parties are pretty fun, but you'll also get bored of them pretty quickly because there's not much to do after that. Because you just come back home and sleep, and next day morning's again a thing. So yeah, most people don't end up partying after like the first 3 weeks, unless unless I don't know, unless you just really like partying, I guess. Yeah, that's about it. And most of the social friend groups do revolve around your major, because our college is one of those where like they physically separate the buildings in zones. So like the business side of campus is on like the other side, the engineering's on the other side, and like it's fully separated. So like you'll never really see people interact unless they live in like off-campus housing.
Okay. So parents can take solace in the fact that if you send your child to the Midwest, it'll be too cold for them to get into any shenanigans. So, but thank you. And also on that note, the UIUC engineering Instagram account is amazing. They have such cool competitions and all sorts of crazy cool things. So for those of you
They've done
interested,
their PR pretty well.
yeah, Shreya.
Yeah, so I pretty much agree with Pratham. We have the same the club fair is what we call it, like in our orientation week when we first go. They have a full showcase of like every single club out there, like Pratham mentioned. So that's how I got to know about all the clubs because not everything's listed on the website. So I went there and I saw so many like new clubs out there. So CMU has a pretty interesting social scene. So it's not really a traditional party school as such, but there's a lot going on in terms of like Greek life. And so for the clubs, actually, some of the pre-professional ones, like consulting or financial ones, are pretty hard to get in. Like they're even more competitive to get in than CMU. But the other clubs, like the technical ones, like the one I'm part of, the data science club, is relatively pretty easy to get into. So except for the consulting ones, everything else is pretty much easier to get into. And for me, a big part of my social life came from my friend group and my dance, because I was on a dance team for 2 years. And basically, we had late night practice sessions, we traveled for competitions, and we spent a lot of time together. So it was a good getaway from academics as well. And a lot of the clubs actually make us go on like these nature walk retreat stuff as well before it gets too cold again, which is just for a month. So that's also just another way to basically engage people out there socially. And yeah, I mean, my social life is pretty much similar to Pratham's and Raghu's as well in terms of like how the university is.
Cool. So the other question we'll share with you guys, we'll get to the end after we switch off the recording. Sapna, do you want to go over to the school college transition?
Right. So now we'll quickly talk about, dig a bit deeper into your personal experiences, less about your college, but more about you. So according to you, for each one of you, and I'll go with Shreya first, just because she's been coming in towards the end and gets to say just like everyone else. So we'll hear from her first. So what has been the best part and the worst part about studying in the US for you?
So for sure, the best part for me is the flexibility. So I entered as an economics major, and then I realized I wanted to do stats with it. So then I did economics and stats. And then I realized that economics is fun, but I didn't want to be my major. So then I turned that into a minor. And then I just did stats. And then I realized stats is too theoretical. So let me do some applied stats, which is machine learning. So then I added machine learning on top. And then I fully removed my econ minor and I did econ honors instead. So there's a lot of playing around in terms of what I actually ended up doing. But I love that flexibility because you don't go into college knowing what you always want to do. Like some people, they may be so sure, but then they come into college and realize that's not what they want to do. So I just love the flexibility culture of US, that you can explore all sorts of interests of yours. And sorry, did you ask something else apart from the best thing?
What's been the most, I mean, what's been the worst part of studying in the US for you?
Okay, so I think it would probably just being away from family for so long. But then again, you get used to it. So I was just homesick for the first month, but after that I got used to it slowly with through these social events and through my friends and everyone. So yeah, I would just say that.
Yeah. Pratham, what about you? The best and the worst of studying in the US.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm not a big fan of attendance. And so one of the best things in the US was I can choose if I want to attend or not. That's like one of the big things, but it does become a dirty habit because some of these courses you won't understand anything if you don't go. But that and also you can choose your course timings. I guess that's a big one, right? Because I don't know if I would be willing to wake up at 8 a.m. when it's -5 outside. So it's one of those things where if you do have your classes post noon, you're more likely to attend them. And the worst thing was probably just this the okay. So it my exams happen in something called a CBTF, and you don't get method marks. So in math and physics, you can make one mistake and you just type the answer out. So imagine writing a whole equation in Python syntax. And I'm not good at Python. So like my syntax was horrible. So I'd be spending 10-15 minutes per exam just figuring out which comma or bracket I missed. And which it just sucks, right? Because not only do you not get marks for what you did before, even if your final answer was wrong, you might even get the correct answer, but you have issues typing it. So a lot of your time just ends up eating up there. Yeah, but that's about it. Everything else was pretty
Nice. Raghav, for you.
Yes, I think the best part about the US definitely is the flexibility. And we also see like a lot of these universities in India coming up where they offer the same flexibility as the US or at least mimic that environment. But I think what really sets apart the US is the research that they conduct along with the flexibility that they have. Like Shreya, I mean, I started as an IR major, then poli sci. I took few environmental science biology courses and I really liked them and I did well. So then I added my environmental science major as well. And mind you, I did not do science in 11th and 12th grades. So because I was able to do a few bio classes and I did well in them, so I was able to take environmental science as a major. So that definitely is a very big plus. Along with that, I think research is what really has helped me become who I am in terms of understanding my role in the academic environment, who I am as a person, and also where my priorities lie. Research sure really affects everything that you do around the world. For example, last semester, I was conducting research with a professor on voting patterns on immigration in the US since 2015. So we were able to figure out how for example, senators would vote in the US Parliament on immigration related issues, specifically in what contexts and in which parliaments, houses, in what scenarios. So, research is something that the US is excellent at. And I would recommend anybody who wants to conduct research in their undergrad, because I know that even in India, I mean, of course, you have research as well, but not to the same part or the capacity. And also the support that they provide for research, the funding that they have for research for students, both domestic and international, is elite. So that's definitely the best part about studying in the US. I think the worst part, and this is a little different, I think, because I went to boarding school from ages 4 to, I mean, ages, excuse me, 8 to 17. I was there from grades 4 to 12. I never learned how to cook by myself. I always had people preparing food for me in the mess, or when I went home, it was my dad and my mom making food for me. So once I came here, I had to learn how to cook for myself, which was the worst thing ever. I mean, I hate making food for myself. Of course, you can't do that because you have to sustain yourself. You have to be healthy. You can't keep getting takeout. So you learn in life how to ration your sources, make your own food, rely on yourself. So you learn a lot about yourself. So I think it's a blessing in disguise in one way. And I found that I love Italian food because it's easiest to make and it's very healthy. Yeah.
Great. Agrim, what about you?
So, because I'm a business major and I'm also kind of doing something with entrepreneurship, I think the best part that I would say is networking. So since I'm in Boston too, I get to meet a lot of new cool people. And another thing is that there's a lot of risk-taking ability that people have here. Plus, people even higher up into like maybe some top founders, they're like very interested to interact with newer founders, learn about what they are doing. So I think the networking part has really worked out well for me. Um, I think that's one of the parts I really like. In terms of something I don't like, I think something what Raghav said that so Raghav learned how to cook. I still haven't learned how to cook. I'm still surviving with Maggie and omelets. Luckily, I have a roommate that knows how to cook. So I think one problem is the cooking problem. The second thing is I think uh, there's a convenience problem here in terms of specifically groceries for me, because in India you too used to having Blinkit or Zepto available to you like all the time when you go there. There's something called Instacart that takes 2 hours, takes like $15 or $10 is on top of your cart, so you don't really end up ordering. You have to go. You end up taking some sort of public transport, then you are bringing groceries back home, and you're tired within like it's an entire task to go get groceries. So that, and also like just maintaining yourself. Luckily, I was in a boarding school, so I'm kind of used to like keeping my cupboard clean, keeping my room clean as much as I can. So that wasn't a big issue. But yeah, I mean, you're completely on your own, which is something sometimes it bugs me a little bit, but that's nice.
Okay, great. So now a little more deeper, and whoever's comfortable. Personally, for you, what was the most difficult um, thing that or phase that happened to you during your college journey? So, did you go through some real obstacle that you thought that, how am I going to cope with this? Or when you look back during these last 2 or 3 years that you've been in the US, what's been the most difficult? We'll start with Shreya.
Sure. Um, I feel for me, it's mostly finding balance because there's so many things that are going around you. And like they were all previously mentioning, it's also not just academics, it's like cooking and cleaning and other adult stuff in terms of like living alone. So managing and balancing everything was just a little too hectic, and it just leads to a lot of burnout sometimes. But then I eventually put my priorities out there and I said, maybe like that is why I quit my dance team this year. So I'm not in dance anymore because that did take up quite some time for me. But I'll probably find some other ways to see how I can get some like extracurricular done. But yeah, so I just think like putting your priorities out there and maybe just seeing what exactly you wanted to achieve in these next 2 years for me. I was looking more at that. So yeah, basically for me, it was probably just finding a lot of balance between everything.
Yeah. Pratham, Raghav, Agram, anybody has something to share
Um,
about?
yeah, I think I'll go next. I think for me personally, and this is real talk. This is like extremely honest for me. When you come to the US, unless you have a 100% scholarship like Agram, you realize and you consciously feel the amount of money that your parents are investing in you. And I'm very thankful for Indian Asian culture where parents invest their money in their children for their education. You don't forget a single day that your parents have invested money in you. You have invested your time and energy in yourself. So you don't allow yourself or you don't let yourself fail, which is a very big part of life. I think for all young adults and teenagers, especially 17, 18-year-olds coming to the US or going to a foreign country, be it whatever country, when you rationalize the amount of money that is being spent on your education, the expectations that you have to uphold for not only your family, but more importantly for yourself, you realize that you have to keep working hard, you have to keep your head down, you can't get into trouble, you have to do the best you can. And sometimes that is not possible. Sometimes, as hard as you try, you don't achieve that. And I think getting used to that feeling is something that is very difficult. So I think, especially for me, I mean, when I came here my first semester, I didn't do very. I mean, I had two A minuses in my transcript, and I thought that was the end of the world, because how could I get an A minus? My parents are paying so much money. I am studying so hard, and yet I'm not able to perform as well as I am. So I think that is definitely one thing which has impacted me the most. I think learning from that and coming around from that experience helped me build my own confidence. My parents are trusting me more. I mean, and the parents don't do that usually. So that's definitely a big plus. So I think you learn a lot about yourself. You learn about a lot about your boundaries, your your capacity, your capabilities. So the threshold is something that you learn to challenge, live with, and also overcome. Yeah.
Yeah. Pratham, Agrim, any of you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go. So I have two specific anecdotes. So the first one, I'll just start off with the lesson I learned was just just because everything is going happy doesn't mean it's gonna stay happy, right? So this is one of my courses that happened literally this semester. Um, at least in my school, up until 12th grade, most of the work you did was individual work, right? None of your final grades depended on like a teamwork or a project. So when it comes to project work, it can feel like luck of the draw, but I would just say sometimes just trust your teammates. The more you panic, the more that panic and manic just rolls over onto other courses and just becomes a complete mess. So what I ended up doing was I got these two random teammates. They didn't respond to me until the last week, and then apparently they just finished their work, but they never messaged me. So I was panicking. I did their work as well, and then it was just a complete mess, and we ended up like getting a horrible grade on it. So that's one thing. So just trust your teammates also, but also just be careful. Like it's not like completely trust them, but just trust them. That's one thing. And another thing is, it's gonna sound kind of stupid when I say this, but be prepared for a curveball. I don't know how you meant to prepare for a curveball, but just be prepared for it. Because in my mind, when I took engineering, aerospace engineering, I was like, okay, thank God I don't have to deal with code. Thank God I don't have to deal with typing, all that, right? And then one of the courses, the first thing I had to do was the whole math program. So we have linear algebra with Python. So I can only do it with Python. So you don't get a pen and paper during the exam. And I had a nightmare because I'm like, how am I meant to do this? I don't know Python. And the course was going well and good. And then you won't notice you need Python until the first midterm. And the midterm's like you're basically halfway through the semester. And you don't know Python. And because of this, I had like an absolutely horrible grade. So like I think I passed by like 3%. That too because of the curve. And then I was put on academic probation because you can't get less than a B in engineering. It's just not allowed. So, but like obviously that's like a rude awakening, right? You're just not you never thought you were gonna fail. Like it's like okay, I might do bad, but in your head it's like I'm never gonna fail, and then that invincible status just disappears, and then you just have to work all the way again. So I had to learn Python, and yeah, you know the rest.
Yeah. Agrim?
So yeah, I think before I start, one thing, Raghav, even if you are on a full scholarship, the money part does hurt because you're spending good amount of money on accommodation and food. Of course, it's a satisfaction that you're in a full scholarship for maybe 1 year, but then also you start end up saving money. So I think yeah, one part that Raghav mentioned about the money, and yeah, thank God we come from the Indian society that our parents are willing to sponsor it, but a lot of Americans that you would see they're sort of taking huge amounts of student loans just to study in college. And the job market, as some of you might already know, is not really well as of now for the US market. So that is something a lot of people actually struggle with going ahead after they've taken the loan. But another thing, I actually have a very interesting story around this, which I struggled with. So um, what happened is I had gone to college. This was my first year, and the motto or kind of like the tagline of my college is for those made to do. And so I was very excited. I went to college and I was like, okay, I want to do a startup. I go inside the college. I talk to like one or two professors. So one of them started helping. The other said that I won't help you because you are on a visa. I was like, okay, so who do I talk to? So he said, go talk to the visas team. I went to the visas team. They told me that okay, you can't operate a business, you can't do anything like straight up on my face. And I was very disheartened because it's my first year. I was like, okay, I'm here to do, now let me do. And they were quite against it. And so what happened was, for that moment, I was a little let down. And so the assistant dean of my college, I had a word with him, and he was basically like, we are sorry, we can't help you at all in such a scenario. So the first year, all I did was I did not work in a startup. I just did research around what exists in the US in terms of laws, what all are maybe the loopholes that are around this area, or what are I mean, how as a student can you um, sort of be in a business or kind of run a startup in the US? Um, and so what happened was the subsequent year, like the next year, we basically have something called the Hult Prize, which is kind of a business competition, and we had participated in that. And what ended up happening was, so we actually won the first round of the competition, and that was the first time an undergrad team had won the competition in the past 15 years. It was always the masters that were winning it. And so uh, the the assistant dean calls me to his office again, and I'm shit scared that okay, he'll now probably kick me out of the country altogether. And so he calls me. He's like, okay, we really want to start an incubation program at Hult where we want to help people from our school build a business. Please sit and explain me all the loopholes that you have figured out in order to run a business. So that made me like a little relieved. So now like it's chill, but that moment was kind of like a huge struggle period for me, the initial 1 year. And coming back to what I had said earlier, I think the network really helped me there because if I hadn't gone out, talked to people, or networked with a lot of people who would have guided me, because again, as a student, like I saw lawyers online and they were charging like $400 for a half an hour session, which I couldn't afford as a student. So all I could do was go to networking event, find some lawyer who could give me some sort of advice, or some people who could connect me to their lawyers, and that's how I kind of figured this thing out.
Right. Great. So now, one last question from me about this, which is what's the one thing you would have done differently or more in high school to prepare better for university? For Pratham, I think it's going to be Python, but you get another to say something else also, Pratham, if you want. We'll start with Shreya.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I just wish I actually learned a little bit more CS before I went into such a CS heavy school, because CMU is known for CS. And before, since I was going in for econ, I just knew the limited, like basic Python, like very minimal. But I just wish I kind of explored more into it or more into other languages itself, so that because a lot of stats I did, also, actually, speaking of that, stats as well, because I only did stats in 11th grade because our school only offers stats in 11th. So I didn't really have some of the foundational knowledge before I directly transitioned into a full stat major, because I didn't do stat in 12th. So I did some stats over the summer before I went, but that was like a little bit set for me, but I just wish I did more CS. So yeah.
Yeah. Pratham.
Yeah, so for me, it's gonna be more like I would say I should have been more open to like considering other options. Because like sometimes you just think about the stuff you're doing and you're like, this is not what I thought aerospace engineering is gonna be. Like I'm just sitting and working on graphs all day. I thought I was gonna build rockets, right? And that's one thing. And another thing is just like be open to talking to people from other majors and consider their opinion into your work. So it was a common habit for a lot of our engineering circles to like not follow advice from like people who are not in engineering, because we're like, okay, but like I will just follow what engineering people have said because they've already gotten their age, right? Like why would they go wrong? But sometimes you realize not everyone is like cut from the same cloth, right? I might not learn the same way my senior has learned. So I would say just incorporate methods from everyone in your friend circle. It does not only have to be engineering. That's about it.
Raghav.
I think I'd like to fall back on math. Okay. I have done more math for my political science major than I have for my environmental science major. I am not even kidding. Why was I doing statistics in the first day of my political science class? Someone tell me that. I mean, the amount of statistics and math that I've had to use in my poli sci classes is not even funny. And I'm not even doing like methods for my specialization in poli sci. I'm doing comparative government. And even in that, when you conduct research, you have to use methods, especially when you want to make it robust, which is quantitative research. You need to use math, you need to know statistics. The only statistics that I learned in school was 10th grade economics, and that was very primary statistics. So I think that is one thing that I definitely would want to, if I were to go back, work on, because the amount of hours that I've cried and sweat over statistics at university is not even funny. I mean, I would ration 80% of my day on statistics and math as opposed to other classes. One. Second, I think at school, and this is me personally, I don't think I ever was studying for whatever exams I had for a long period of time. I would only do them 1 or 2 weeks before my final examinations. That was my pattern of studying at school. And that I think I'm to blame for that. But at university, you have to consistently study. Consistency is something that matters the most. Even if it's an hour or two every day, you have to keep studying every single day. There's a lot of material, there's a lot of things to catch up on, there's a lot of assignments, quizzes. So you have to really keep abreast with what's happening. So developing those habits in high school are definitely recommended from my side. Yeah.
Agrim?
So I think it's more of a situational basis because we were the batch of 22, which was kind of a COVID batch. So we didn't really get to be in school in 11th grade. I think that is one regret I have. Other than that, I don't have like regrets in terms of career. I think I had a good time to transition, and that luckily worked out for me. Maybe if I would have gone into I don't know what it would have looked like. Maybe I would have really liked it. But considering where I am today, I think I wouldn't have liked it. So I think I made the shift at the right time. Yeah.
Okay. Over to you, Ramya.
Yeah. Sorry guys, can we keep you till
Yeah,
4:20?
yeah.
Is that okay? Okay, so this is really the last sort of formal or the last couple of formal questions from us before we open it up for Q&A. And in the interest of keeping it a bit more real, we will switch off the recording after this set of questions. So one is so going, and thank you so much. I think this is, no matter how many times we all talk, I find there's something I take away every time, I talk to you guys. Switching back to, because we have at least 4 high schoolers that I can see, or 5. Can you tell us, what, just pick 2 or 3 things or even one thing that you were most proud of in your profile?
When they
So,
applied.
sorry?
When they applied to college.
Oh, yeah, sorry. When you applied to college, not now, when you're already thinking, some of you, of you applying for your next level of study. But when you were in high school and when you were applying, what were like 2, 3 things that you felt most stood out about your profile, or that you were most proud of? Sorry, we can start the reverse, maybe, Raghav.
Yes, I think at least from what I have learned, and I've gone through the college process multiple times because I applied when I was coming here, then after the first round of transferring and the second round of transferring. So I've become pretty thorough with the process and what they expect out of applications. So I'd list both things in my high school application and then transferring to Berkeley. For my high school applications, I think what really stood out in my application was picking up a niche and really sticking with that and surrounding my narrative on that niche. For me, it was debate and model UN, and specifically working with a particular organization that Ma'am Sapna's daughter, I, and one of my friends from school founded. So I think my application really focused on the work we did. And because I went to a boarding school, I talked about how being in a boarding school, there are certain issues which are taboos and people don't talk about, especially because we were all at home, we were disconnected from one another, we were each other's families. So that is one initiative that I really talked about, which is open up, is what as we called it. Another one, of course, was debate and model UN, which I did and I did really well at. So that is another component of my application, which I think really stood out. And of course, my essays, and all of these were narratives. So I was very conscious as to what I am drafting, what is the lens that I'm trying to portray, who am I as a person, at least in the terms of the applications. And then for transferring as well, I was very particular as to what I mentioned on my activities. So, of course, I had to keep my academics up, and I was applying with a really good GPA. Thankfully, I did not have to take the SATs for applications to the UCs because they don't consider it. Also, because we were the COVID batch, so it was test optional for us. And another important piece of my application was research, at least when I was applying to transfer. I was on the law review at undergrad. I was conducting research with a nonprofit organization. I was conducting research with the faculty. So I think this is what really stood out in my application. And of course, my narrative, which I applied with. Yeah.
Thank you, Arjun.
So I think there were three things that I think stood out in my application. So one was Model U1. So basically the time that 11th and kind of some ending of 10th grade where we were home, I was basically very involved with online activities. So I had done about, I think, 100 Model U1s by the time I was applying. So that was like a standout. The other thing was I had actually founded a non-profit organization called Girl Up Meerut, which is so Girl Up is an initiative by the UN, and it's in all the cities and kind of state-wise. It's a whole distribution. So I was leading the Meerut branch where I'm from. So that I think stood out. And there was one startup which I had already worked on. So I think these were the three things that stood out in my application.
Thank you, Pratham.
Yeah, so like Raghav mentioned, even for me, it was like pick a niche and go right with it. So, because I wanted to do more like rocketry and engines and propulsion and stuff like that, I would say the standout activity for me was I ended up building a surveillance kind of drone for like a rocket launch. It was an Indian Hyderabad-based private aerospace company, and that was pretty big because you learn a lot about how to manufacture stuff. And at the end of the day, that's what they ask you, like in the employment interviews and stuff like that. So that was good. And then I also started a model rocketry workshop kind of a organization, you could say, where we basically built stage two rockets. So like this is like pretty advanced stuff. You need a license for this stuff from the government, but it's like you have a booster and you have a sustainer, and they just separate, and then you bring the rocket back. So that also taught us a lot about like organizing events, making sure like you don't harm other people, because one of the main things about flying rockets is you might fall somewhere, right? And then the third thing I would say is I also did a lot of research, but the one I'm the most proud about was I did a research on green rocket fuels with a DRDO ratified professor. I mean, we never got to publish it, but she did verify the whole thing, and like she said, it was pretty much up to standard. And yeah, so that was it. Those are my three.
Yeah, we tried to get Pratham's rocket to launch in school, but then I think, did it happen? It didn't happen, right?
No, no, no.
We tried, but it didn't happen. Shreya?
Yeah, so I think what made my application stand out a lot was going out and beyond the classroom and just showing initiative from there. So, for example, I was selected as the top like 1% fellowship for the UN internship, where I published research on gender disparities. And I also did some public policy fellowship where I led policy simulations. So, and I also participated in multiple competitions throughout my high school, whether it be something like Harvard Student Agency's entrepreneurship program or the Queensland Virtual Incubator. That's all business related because I was leaning into economics and business back then. So these experiences weren't part of school, and they were things that I actively sought out. Because I was just curious and I wanted to understand exactly how data, policy, and tech were all connected. So I just think that when you take this extra step or just do something out of the box, then that gives you an edge, and that also puts you apart from your regular academics or doing research papers, etc. So that's what, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so one last question from us before we open it up. So now this is a very simple one. It's just an ABCD option. So if you were making college applications this year, knowing what you know about college life and you have these 2 or 3 years of experience now, would you apply to the US? A, definitely. B, most probably yes. C, maybe not. And D, definitely not. We'll just do
The same
Raghav,
order.
Agam, Shreya.
Yeah, I would rate it an A plus.
Okay. Agam,
I would say A.
Pratham,
Yeah, I would say A minus.
Shreya.
I would say most probably yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We'll switch off the recording and then move to Q&A.